Let's talk. I'm your host, Conrad Negron. For an exciting, fun, informative show, we are going to go from ground zero to the Love Boat. So stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Robert Black from Unison Solar Network. I got a question for you. Are you harnessing the power of the sun? If not, why not? Here at Unison Solar Network, we've made getting solar really easy. So whether you're a homeowner, a business, or a nonprofit entity, you can take advantage of the power that the sun's going to bring to you. Why keep paying for those high utility bills, future rate increases, when you can actually become your own energy provider? Become energy dependent. Go solar. Enjoy.
Aaron Swade's here.
Hi.
E-Swade, Style by Swade. Wow, this is our first show of the season.
Amazing.
We got some great stuff. In fact, today, and you were there, we have an interview with Lieutenant Joe Torrillo of the New York Fire Department.
Crazy.
What happened? I mean, I
It
can't even talk about it.
I know. We were both, actually, Conrad and I were both quiet, which
very
really,
hard
I
for
know.
you to
It was
do.
really, I know.
Just turn her on and she'll talk.
I know, but we were both in absolute dumbstruck by the story that this man tells. So it's really exciting. We were on the edge of our seat.
Well, I mean, I sometimes don't get speeches. I just put my hand up, and I was shaking.
I know.
I mean, this guy. Well, I'm not going to tell you. I think if you watch, you'll get emotionally felt. It'll be. Well, it brings back, not good
right
memories,
back,
but it brings you right back. It's still with
fresh.
us. It's still
I know.
fresh.
I know.
We're gonna have a good time. Everybody, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Conrad Negron here. We're talking today. We're at a great event over at Indian Wells Hotel. We've got a very inspirational guest, Mr. Joe Torrillo. Torrillo. I always say him wrong, so
right. No big deal.
I get corrected all the time.
No big deal.
It's those Italian names that I just can't pronounce.
My wife is Spanish. I'm Italian.
Oh boy.
Colombian.
Joe, thanks for coming today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Tell us, you started your career as a fireman in New York.
Yep.
And
New York City.
where was your firehouse?
Right across the street from the World Trade Center. Started my career in 1980. There was a brand new firehouse, and they built it because of the World Trade Center complex. And I was there for 16 years.
So the World Trade Center had been there 30 years, I think, or something like that?
Before it was attacked.
Yeah.
Before it was attacked. Actually, the first tower opened in January of 72. So, and then the second tower opened a year and a month later.
And so you started your career, and then what happened?
Well, I started my career. I was there for 16 years, from 1980 to 1996. Got promoted to lieutenant. I was put in a different area of New York City, and shortly after getting promoted, on New Year's Eve of 1996, I was only a lieutenant for 4 months. I got hurt very serious in a fire. Trying to rescue a woman, my left thumb was almost completely cut off of my hand, and I was recuperating in fire department headquarters at a desk job, and they made me take over their office of fire safety education. Basically, I had to go out Monday to Friday and talk to kids about preventing and surviving fires, because I couldn't work in a firehouse,
You couldn't do like the hard work with your hands?
No, I couldn't be an actual firefighter, so I was going out teaching kids in schools, while I was recuperating. And I knew nothing about this part of the fire service. And ironically, 8 months into this new assignment, they named me the director of the whole program.
Then what happened? Where'd you go?
So then what happened was, as the new director of the fire department's education program, I decided we should have a learning center where kids can go on a school trip if they really want to learn the messages of fire prevention and survival. So Mayor Giuliani gave me a $3 million budget, and I spearheaded to build and design the first fire safety education learning center. And I worked on that project for 2 years. We opened in October of 2000. It's called the Fire Zone, right next to Radio City Music Hall. And a month later, we got nominated for an Emmy Award, and we won an Emmy Award.
Congratulations.
For the first,
wow, that is fantastic.
Never in my wildest imagination would I have ever thought that I would win such a prestigious award. And so right after we opened in October 2000, a month later, we win that prestigious award. We were up against Disney and Six Flags for this award. And then in January of 2001, I got a call from a company called Fisher-Price Toys. They want me to design a new children's action figure, part of their other rescue heroes. They're going to call him Billy Blazes. He was going to be a New York City firefighter.
Wow.
And if I helped
That's a good name, I think.
Yeah, they chose the name, and if I helped them design this little action figure, I was going to get $1 if everyone sold around the world.
That's some good licensing right there.
No, but the money wasn't going to go in my pocket. It was going to go into my education program. And I used that kind of funding to buy smoke detectors and give them out free to people like you who were willing to listen to me for an hour on how to prevent and survive a fire. So in January 2001, I had a huge meeting with the Fisher-Price executive, the toy designers, the artists and illustrators, and for a whole day in my office and headquarters when I was telling them what a firefighter looks like with his bunker gear, which is his firefighting clothing, his helmet, his boots, his gloves, his jacket, his air mask.
How much does that weigh?
Altogether, you probably got about 80 pounds, besides your tools.
Yeah.
And so as I'm talking about what you look like with all this gear and tools and equipment, the artists and the illustrators and the toy designers had art pads on easels with crayons and markers, and they're drawing as I'm talking.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, they have fully sketched out this new little children's rescue hero, a New York City firefighter called Billy Blaze.
Billy Blaze, I like it.
Well, they take the artwork, they go to the factory, and it took 6 months to go from artwork to the first mold and prototype, which was now July of 2001. And they called us up for a meeting. We looked it over. We agreed to go into mass production. And they want to have a big press conference in New York City. They want to introduce the new children's rescue hero, Billy Blazes, right in New York. They said, where can we have a press conference? So I was brainstorming. I was coming upon the first anniversary of the opening of my learning center. I figured if they can have a press conference, I want free advertisement. You know what I mean? I said, why don't we have the press conference at the fire zone? They said, what's that? I said, it's a new children's learning center I designed. We won an Emmy Award for it. They said, you got to be kidding me. Where is it? I said, it's in Rockefeller Center, next to Radio City Music Hall. This is, oh my God, can we really do it there? And I said, yeah, well, I'm the director. This is, oh my God, this is getting better and better. How apropos. And they said, okay, we know where we're going to do the press conference, but when? Well, this was July 2001.
You're making me nervous now, but go ahead.
No, I said, well, let's do it in October. They said, why? I said, it's Fire Prevention Month. It's the longest running health initiative in the world. It goes back to 1871 when they rebuilt Chicago, supposedly after Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over the lantern in the barn.
Yeah.
And after they rebuilt Chicago, every year after, in October, they'd have Fire Prevention Month. Matter of fact, this month right now, it's Fire Prevention Month. And they said, oh, that's a great idea. You know, it's a natural tie to our project, but it's too close to the Christmas and the holiday season. We want to get Billy Blazes on the mark a little bit sooner. I couldn't think of another date between July and October. I was kind of brainstorming, and I said, you know, 911 is the emergency phone number in New York City. Why don't we have like a 911 themed safety day? And it says, oh my God, what a great novel idea. So on 911, September 11, 2001, at 9 o'clock in the morning, all the TV stations in New York City were waiting for me to introduce...
I'm shaking.
No, it's a true story. They're all waiting for me, every TV station, to introduce the new children's action figure, Billy Blazes, a New York City firefighter, to the world. And I had just left my office in Brooklyn, in fire department headquarters. I was going over the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan, and about an eighth of a mile away, I see smoke and fire coming out the top of the World Trade Center. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I'm thinking about my friends in that firehouse across the street where I started my career. Now I'm saying, what do I do? Do I make a right and go to the press conference, or do I go to the left and get to my firehouse and run into the building to see what's going on? And that's what I did. I was in my firehouse at 9 o'clock.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I got to my old firehouse at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, 14 minutes after the plane struck the tower.
First tower.
At that time, when I got to my firehouse, I was asking anybody, what happened? What happened? Was it a bomb? No. Somebody says, we think a little plane flew into accidentally hit the North Tower. So I took off my dress uniform and I grabbed a helmet, boots, and gloves jacket from another fireman off duty. His name was Tommy McNamara. You know, he was at home. I took his firefighting clothing and I ran out of my firehouse, which is 150 feet across the street from the South Tower. So I'm running to the North Tower, but I have to run past the South Tower to get to it. And as I'm running past the South Tower, it's 9:03, which happens to be my lucky number. And I hear a roar, and I looked up, and the second jet came right over my head. I was the only one underneath it. And I see the jet from nose to the tail for about one split second. It hits the tower and then disappears, almost like a magic act. The tower looked like it just sucked the jet right inside. I'm like, oh my God, we're under a terrorist attack. And the first two things I said to everybody that I encountered, I said, everybody on the top of the buildings are going to die. I said, we're not going to be able to get to them, and they're not going to be able to get down. And I said, second thing I said, these buildings are going to collapse. People said, what? I said, these buildings are going to collapse. But nobody would listen to me. Nobody could understand. Nobody knew I was a structural engineer before I was a fireman. And when I was in engineering school, my professors were working for the concrete contractor on the towers, and they were able to take us, the engineering students, on a school trip down to the towers to study this new novel design of the World Trade Center Twin Towers, which was so radically different than the Empire State Building. And all those memories came back to me in a flash, and I realized these buildings, the support system, cannot withstand that amount of fire and that amount of structural damage. And
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Being an engineer, and you saw the
plane
disappear.
Right.
Isn't it capable? Because I've seen planes crash before, and wouldn't the wings fly off?
Well, that's a good question, okay? Because I do a whole presentation on this subject alone. When a plane hits a building, okay, there's one of three things that can and will happen. And this is more common sense than anything. A plane hits a building, the plane breaks the building apart and enters the building, right? You can understand that, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. And for people who don't want to believe me, just watch the videos. It's all caught on tape, right? The second thing that can and might happen, a plane hits a building, the building breaks the plane apart and throws the plane back into the street. That did not happen. The third scenario is a combination of both the first one and the second one. Plane hits a building, some of the plane goes into the building.
And the other half breaks off.
Well, you know what? It happened in 1945 in July when a B-25 bomber got lost in fog and crashed between the 79th and 80th floor of the Empire State Building. Some of the plane was inside, some of the plane was outside. You know what I mean? So I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just telling you common sense. But of course, nobody's believing me that these buildings are going to collapse. And my biggest fear was that we were going to lose a lot of people, maybe me too. But I didn't want to lose the emergency ambulance crews who were setting up a treatment area in the lobby of the towers. I knew that I had to get them out first. And they were giving me a hard time. They were saying, who the hell are you? We don't work for you. You got no authority. You don't understand. We got to treat people. I said, no, you don't understand. These buildings are going to come down and, we're going to lose you. And they're looking at me like...
These are other firefighters or...
These were ambulance crews, you know what I mean? But I wasn't their supervisor, but I was making myself their supervisor. And they were giving me a hard time, especially one crew. And I finally got them out of the tower, and I'm outside the South Tower.
And you saved their lives.
Well, they were all alive today. Every single one of them were alive. They all would be dead, And I'm not saying that as a hero. I'm just telling you they would have died, but they didn't want to listen to me. But I was forceful, and I was right outside the South Tower, outside in front of it, and I heard a loud rumble and a roar, and I looked up and the building's coming. And I said to myself, you idiot, you're the one who knew this building was going to collapse, and you put yourself right underneath it. Because I didn't really think the buildings were going to collapse.
That fast?
I didn't think they were going to collapse until about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was guesstimating. I never thought in less than an hour the building was going to come down when I would put myself right underneath it. And at that point, I realized I had about 10 seconds left to live. And all I was afraid was that my body wouldn't be found, or my body wouldn't be identified. So I started running as fast as I could because there was a footbridge that went over the main thoroughfare in front of the World Trade Center complex. And I thought if I can make it underneath that footbridge, maybe they'd find my body. And I start running as fast as I can, and the building's coming down what we call a pancake type of collapse. 110 stories hitting a floor below, 100, boom, 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 boom. And as it's hitting each floor below, it's puffing air out like a fireplace bellows. And I could feel the air on the back of my neck as I'm running, and then the air pressure was getting stronger and stronger. It blew my helmet off of my head. And my helmet was flying faster than I'm running, and it was going up in the air. And I'm watching it, and I'm running. It was like watching The Wizard of Oz when the house took off in Kansas, And then at some point, the air pressure got so strong it lifted me off my feet, and I was flying through the air. And then a piece of steel opened up the whole back of my head, and huge slabs of concrete were just hitting my body. And now I got a fractured skull. All my ribs are broken. This arm is snapped in half. My shoulder is torn. My neck and my spine are crushed, and I'm suffocating. I'm suffocating to death in this black darkness. Could see nothing. I'm buried with all these other people. And they're all screaming at the top of their lungs, screaming to help me, crying. And then the screams turned into cries, cries into whimpers, whimpers into silence. One by one, they had all died. And I was still breathing. And then I was in the middle of all these fires. And I was praying that God would suffocate me before I burned to death. And then about 25 minutes later, people came and they were digging. They found the boy. They found me. They got me out. They put me on a stretcher and they ran to the shoreline of the Hudson River that separates Manhattan from New Jersey. They put me on the deck of a boat. They were holding my head closed, and I heard them saying that I was going to die if they couldn't get me to a hospital. And then there was another loud rumble and a roar.
And the next building.
People on the boat started screaming, "Oh my God, here comes the other building!" Now the North Tower flew across the street towards the river. Everybody jumped off the boat and left me behind, and they all jumped overboard, and I was strapped and I broke free, and I stuck my hand out and I just felt the doorway. I jumped into the doorway, but it was the entrance to the engine room of the boat. I ended up diving 10 feet head first into the engine room, and now the North Tower fell on top of the boat, and I was buried on the river in the boat for about another hour. And as I was losing consciousness, people came back to the boat, and I heard a commotion, jumping on the deck. Somebody came into the engine room to start the engines. They found me. The boat skipped across the river, and I woke up in an operating room, but I didn't know where I was. I was in another state. I was in New Jersey, and I remember in the operating room, they were cutting all my clothes off of me with scissors, about 15 doctors and nurses, and on the inside of our coat, our firefighting coat, we all write our name. It said Tommy McNamara.
Was it your coat?
No, I was wearing Tommy. So I was admitted as Tommy McNamara for 3 days, and I was declared dead. Tommy McNamara was at home with his wife. I had his coat on, so I was admitted as Tommy McNamara. And that night, when the sun went down, 344 firefighters were declared dead. 3 days later, one was found alive, and that was me. And Billy Blazes would come to represent the other 343 guys who made the supreme sacrifice. And I tell people now, I let you all in on a little secret. Superman's not real, Batman and Robin's not real, Spider-Man's not real. The only children's rescue hero, whoever came to life, was Billy Blazes on the morning of September 11th, and I just happened to choose that date, and he would actually save me and nobody else.
You look great.
I'm having more surgeries the next couple of months, so I'm not done, yet. I still have, they got to reattach the biceps. They ripped off my arm again. They got to fuse my back. I got polyps growing underneath my forehead. I've been putting off the surgeries, but I just got to get them all done now because I've been dedicating so much of my time doing this volunteer and charity work, but I got to get the surgeries done. And then, jump back into my volunteer work again. I'm a volunteer tour guide at Ground Zero, so when people come to New York City, I let them relive the day through the words of a real survivor and one who was there for the whole incident.
I'm like, I can't even, obviously you can't talk to those people because they're not here.
Exactly.
I mean, the other people that saw it from a distance, saw it from a distance or a television screen, which I saw it on.
Exactly. You know what? 28 years ago, I went to Hawaii, and one of the things most people want to do when they go to Hawaii is go to Pearl Harbor. And I took the trip to Pearl Harbor, and I got to meet soldiers who were actually there when the bombs were falling down. So I got to relive, the bombing of Pearl Harbor through the words of soldiers who were actually, of course, these gentlemen were much older now. And so from that experience, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to reciprocate that feeling I got 28 years ago in New York City for people like you when you come, so you can hear the story correctly and very respectfully. And I make it very clear, I am not a hero. I'm nothing more than a first responder and a survivor. 343 heroes and 60 police officers, they were carried to their graves. I just get to tell their story.
Joe, thank you so much.
Good.
I don't even know how to express it. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
I
appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully we'll have a great event tonight.
Well, you know what? When I come to New York, I'm calling you.
No, you know what? People do it all the time, I meet people all over the United States. They come to New York, and I'm their private tour guide, so...
Maybe you show us a nice Italian restaurant to go to?
There's plenty of those. I mean, everything you want in New York City, you know that, right?
I know.
There you go.
I haven't been there for a little while, but I would really like to go and see the Freedom Tower.
Well, you know what? The Freedom Tower, it's open. The observation deck. I haven't even been up to the observation deck, but the museum is something you really want to see. You got to take
you went there?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact,
is that hard to do?
You know what? The first time I was in there, it was very, very difficult for me because it all came back to me, But I had to be strong because I was taking other people on a tour, and I wanted them to really enjoy it. I didn't want to, break down and then totally lose it. For them, I got through it, and it's, I've been there 3 times already, and it just brings it all back. It puts me in a different state of mind where I keep saying to myself, did this really ever happen? Because it's so surreal when I think about it, some days I wake up and say, no, it really didn't happen. I'm going to go, to Lower Manhattan and the towers are going to be there. It's like a bad dream, and sometimes I think it happened 100 years ago. Sometimes it seems like it was yesterday, and then there were days I just don't ever believe it happened. So I get all these mixed feelings all the time.
Well, I'm in shock. Joe, the fireman, thank you very much.
Hey, Conrad, thanks for the opportunity.
God bless you. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thanks for coming on my show.
No, I appreciate it.
Wow.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm still actually speechless, and after listening to him and Billy Blaze and the way the whole day came out, I mean, it was almost
the 9/11 coincidence.
Yeah, and you couldn't even put this on a movie.
You couldn't make that up.
Yeah, I'm still, I had to take my jacket off. It was making me sweat. Everybody, thanks for tuning in.
Hi everybody, this is Robert Black from Unison Solar Network. I got a question for you. Are you harnessing the power of the sun? If not, why not? Here at Unison Solar Network, we've made getting solar really easy. So whether you're a homeowner, a business, or a nonprofit entity, you can take advantage of the power that the sun's going to bring to you. Why keep paying for those high utility bills, future rate increases, when you can actually become your own energy provider? Become energy dependent. Go solar, enjoy.